And write F-E-U-D-A-L-I-S-M. F-E-U-D-A-L-I-S-M. Feudalism. Feudalism is obviously an ism. It is the, listen to me, this is the actual test question, the great ism of the Middle Ages. It is the ism to its time period like communism, fascism, and democracy has been to the 20th century. Okay? Was the great idea of the secular idea of the age. Yes?
Is this number 5?
This is a whole new topic. Draw a line across your notes.
What was number 5?
There aren't any. Okay? All right? I don't know how many things you got. I didn't really number them down. Maybe I said 5. I don't know. Feudalism, if you were to draw a timeline, looks like this. In fact, you might want to draw a timeline. Starting about 300 AD in Rome and ending maybe as late as 1789. You might even argue later than that. Feudalism starts out in the Roman time period as a movement where, and here's the line you want to write down, where areas became increasingly dependent only on itself. In other words, you had an area of the Roman Empire that with each passing year became more and more self-supporting, self-governing, self-defending. Okay, as Roman control, Roman rule, Roman power began to diminish. That's why I use the date as late as 300. And by 1789, everybody I trust knows that's the year of the French Revolution. Okay, one of the first things the revolutionaries did was to disassemble, to knock apart, to destroy the remaining feudal laws in France. Okay? And in the time period we're talking about, from about 700 to about 1200, during that 500-year period of time, it's the dominant force in Europe. Okay? It's how everything outside of the church functions. Okay? It's based on feudalism. Now you want to write down, the second thing you want to write down is feudalism had 4 facets to it, 4 sides to it, 4 components to it. They were as follows. It was a system of social structure. So write down its social structure. Number 2, it was a system of government. It was a system of government. Number 3, it was a military system. It was a military system. And last of all, it was an economic system. Social system, governmental system, military system, and economic system.
Is that kind of the basis of communism in a way?
No, not really.
Well, did they use like this, like the farmers?
Oh, I see what you're saying. There is a parallel to communism in that communism affected government, it affected social structure, all citizens were equal. Yeah, it's as pervasive as communism was, but other than that, no, there's not really any connection. Yes, Rachel, dear.
What were all these things part of?
Feudalism. It has 4 parts: social system, political system, military system, economic system. Now, you're going to need to draw a big triangle. Okay? Feudalism, like most things in the Middle Ages, including the Catholic Church when we get to that, is a pyramid. Okay? It's pyramidal. This is that. This is medieval society. At the top, depending on where you are, is the king. if you're in the Holy Roman Empire, the Kaiser, the emperor, okay? But the person who's at the top. Now, we today can't go through a day without either looking at a magazine cover or looking at the front page of the newspaper or turning on the television and without hearing the word Obama or seeing his picture. Because we live in a society where we're bombarded with that. Probably most people living in most of these countries might have known his name, but they would have never seen him in their lives. He lived miles away, had nothing directly to do with them at all. Okay, 90% of the population. Okay, he was a distant person way off someplace else. But he's at the top of the heap. Underneath him was a series of noblemen, counts, dukes, earls, viscounts, marquises, okay, that are together referred to as vassals. They were subordinates of his. And each one of these people ruled a bit of territory. Okay? For example, I'm the king. I'm in the capital city. The words, using the word city loosely, probably again was about the size of Midway down here. But I'm living there. And way back there in that distant black castle, okay, is the Duke de Linville. Okay? And he is responsible for that land along the boundary. Over here, okay, the Comte de Riley, okay, responsible for that land over here. And right here, okay, Viscount Perkins, okay, who's responsible for this territory just outside of the royal domain I rule myself, okay. The country is divided up into geographic regions. I don't care what country, whether you're talking about England or whether you're talking about France or Spain or Germany. You want to write down, the country was divided into regions, and each of these regions was ruled over by a nobleman who took an oath of allegiance to the king. But they did the actual ruling. Because this school district has more employees than did the government of most countries in Europe at this time period. Okay, a king would be lucky if he had 20 or 25 people working for him max. And yet he might be running a country the size of Texas. Okay? Because there's no money, there's no structural system, there's no little education. So he has to rely on the noblemen living in the different areas who take an oath of office to him, an oath of obedience, when they become whatever they are. Down at the bottom, and this is about 90% of the population, there are the serfs. The serfs. Now make sure you do spell this right for the second time I'm pointing this out to you. It doesn't have an M, that's a smurf. It doesn't have a U, that's serf, like along the coast. These are S-E-R-F-S, serfs. These are the working people who run the land, who do all the grunt work. They live pitifully short lives. They never have any education. They live in a hut, is probably being kind. They are the backbone of this society. Okay? And there's a phrase that we use about them, and it is this: bound to the soil. Which means, we'll back into it. Mr. Brandenburg, what job, I'm going to be careful on this desk, this is the one that's got the, I'm liable to go disappearing on the sign, which would be entertaining for you, but would be hard on me. What do you want to do when you grow up, as they say? An engineer. Is your father an engineer? No. Was your grandfather an engineer? No. Do you expect your son to be an engineer? No. Okay. That's because, I hope you're listening to me, that's because he's a modern person. In modern society, There is no duty, no sense that you have to do what your father did, and there's certainly no sense that your son will have to do what you do. Okay? You want to write down in the Middle Ages, it was exactly the opposite. In fact, it was so much the opposite, Mr. Fetter, that let us say that your daddy was a peasant. Okay? Your chances of escaping being a peasant is about 1 in 1,000. 1 in 10,000. Almost everybody in Europe did what their father did, what their grandfather did, what their great-grandfather did. In the Middle Ages, you were locked into this. About your only route of escape, in England towards the end of the Middle Ages, there was a little bit of flex there. You might live long enough to see your great-grandson do something different than you did, okay? But the only route of escape was the church. If you went into the church, there you had some chance of going off in another direction. But if you stayed where you were born, you inherited your father's job. It was a very, I would write down the word static society. Anybody knows what I mean by static? I don't mean the fuzzy stuff that you get on the radio. I mean static as in not moving. It was a static society. Okay? Now, does everybody understand social structure? All right? Let's go to number 2. Second thing is that it is a political structure. Okay? At the top we have the king. In the middle we have the vassals. And down at the bottom you have the workers, the serfs. And nothing's different here in case you head out. Okay? In this case though, the king is the head of state. Any country. Western Europe. The head of state. The figure of the head of the nation. The only thing that he actually rules directly is the royal domain, which was the area, D-O-M-A-I-N-E, the area right around wherever his capital was, wherever it was his seat of power. That was the royal domain. He ruled that. The rest of it was ruled for him by other people in his name. Okay? He only had indirect control. I, Stephen the Seventh, King of Greater Heraldania, order you, Ridenauer the Sixth, King of Middlenia, okay, to do the following things. What if Ridenauer says take a hike? I ain't gonna do it. What am I supposed to do? Well, how? I don't have a standing army. I have to persuade all the other noblemen, hey guys, let's go over and beat him up. Okay? They may or may not want to do that. Okay? This system is very indirect rule. Okay? The king has very limited powers. If the king is dynamic, if the king is charismatic, if it's in a time of crisis, probably they do what they're told. But if I as a king have no charisma, if I am a coward, if I am inept as a soldier, they probably do dang well what they want. Okay? And of course the people who are making all this work, no matter who's calling the shots, are the serfs down at the bottom. Okay? A system of government. You want to write down the phrase, besides royal domain, local control. Okay? Local control. Number 3. I'm not drawing any more pyramids. I think you got the idea. Number 3. An economic system. An economic system. All right, this is the Earl. No, you were the Marquis if you're English, Marquis if you're anybody else, of Perkins, right? That's who you were. Okay. This is your estate. What's the medieval term for an estate? Maybe 700 acres, maybe 7,000 acres, maybe 17,000 acres, maybe 1,700 square miles, depends on who you are and how powerful you are. What's the term for a medieval estate? Begins with an M. Don't know, put your hands up at once. No. At least it begins with an M.
Does it?
Yes. A manor. M-A-N-O-R. A manor. A manor. In the middle of that manor is a... What does he live in? A castle. What is it in French? No. Come on, French. French word for castle? No. Chateau, C-H-A-T-E-A-U-X. Actually, C-H-A-T-E-A-U if it's one, okay? Chateau. In German, Schloss, S-C-H-L-O-S-S. Yeah, sure. Castle. Chateau. Schloss. Okay? In the middle of it, and in the middle of this manor, is where guys, where the Duke, the Count, the Marquis, the Earl, whatever the case is, lives. Okay? Yeah. You need to know castle.
Okay, we don't need to know the other language.
Oh, the other two would be lovely bonus questions. Okay?
Okay,
All right.
so is chateau
We try for
French
multilingualness here. That's the point.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. What is this manor? What does it make? What does it grow? What does it produce? Everything. Thank you, sir. Your wisdom is great. It produces everything. If we don't produce it, what? We don't have it. Okay? Let me say that again. It's crucial you understand. In the Middle Ages, if the manor doesn't produce it, the serfs that live there, the people that have residence there, simply don't have it. There's no trade. Okay? In the year 800 or 900, there's no roads. Traveling is virtually impossible. There's no police, Mr. Bolts. You're crazy enough to think you're going to do this. You assemble 10 wagons, fill them with expensive goods, and start out through the countryside. You tell me what happens the first or second or third day out. You get mugged. Okay?
Is this during Robin Hood's time?
This is Robin Hood and before. Okay, all right. Oceans, we don't know how. Well, A, ships are about as advanced as your bathtub. Okay. B, we don't know how to navigate because none of the modern navigating instruments exist yet. And C, we think there's big monsters out there that are going to gobble us up, so we don't want to go out. Created at home. Okay. Now let me ask you this question, Ian. I'm sure that's what you're discussing with Wes. Okay. What is everything on this manor built out of? Wood. You want to write that down. Okay. This is in the wooden age. Okay.
Even the castle?
The castle, even not stone, not until we get to about 11 or 1200. Because that's a castle from 1150. Okay. I'll show you on Monday. I've got one. Yes.
I thought the early Romans built concrete.
Oh, they did. The excellent question up here is. The excellent question up here is, I thought the Romans had concrete. I thought the Romans built domes. I thought the Romans had central heating. I thought the Romans had running water. What has happened to all that knowledge? It's gone. It's disappeared. Okay? In fact, guys, you want to realize how crude things are. Okay? see this hut we're living in? Or do you see the castle that we're living in the year 900? You see that fire burning over there? What don't we have? No. What does no structure built in 800, 900, 1000, 1100 have?
Chimney.
Chimney. We have forgotten chimneys. You know what we have? Even in the Lord's Castle, if you go to Penhurst Place in England, it's one of the last English manor houses. Notice my word choice. Manor house. No, a hole in the ceiling. It's called a smoke hole. It was a hole. The smoke. Now, you imagine, wait for a moment. At Penhurst Place, the last major house in England that's never been modernized. It's the way it was constructed in about 1100. Okay? There is a room about twice the size of this called the Great Hall. Has about a 30-foot high ceiling, magnificent woodwork. Okay? It's all built out of wood and stucco. And in the center, there's a hole. And when in the wintertime, they had a roaring fire going in there. Okay? Can you imagine what that room was like? The quality of the air. Okay? No wonder most of the people living in this time period had all sorts of respiratory and other kinds of problems. Okay? Now, we need to write something else down. Since this manor is farming related, we're trying to farm without any knowledge. There are no fertilizers. So you want to write that down. Chemical fertilizers won't be invented until the 1870s. And there's very little concept of what you do with dung. Okay? For most of modern history, we found that poop is an excellent way of improving agricultural results. You go out and spread animal poop everywhere, and all sorts of wonderful things happen. They really didn't even understand this. They used a phrase you definitely want to know, the three-field system. The three-field system was this. These 2 rows are a field, these 2 rows are a field, and these 2 rows are a field. This year we grow wheat here, oats here, nothing there. Next year we grow wheat here, oats there, nothing there. Next year, keep going. So you want to write down 1/3 of the land at any one time is empty, because that's the only way we have of generating some degree of soil reinvigoration by just simply letting it lie fallow under maybe grass for a year or 2. But generally, they rotated every 3 years, the three-field system. This will be used all during. It was yields were pathetic. Okay? I haven't got my yield this year on our soybeans. I'm hoping for 60 to 65 bushels to the acre. They didn't grow soybeans in the Middle Ages, but they had to have been lucky if you got 5 or 10 bushels to the acre. Okay? Very, very inefficient agriculture. Yes?
This is random but kind of related. Did they have marijuana back then?
They had hemp.
What's that?
And they use, yes, I know. Okay. I'm old, but I'm not dumb. Okay. But hemp was used for rope making. Okay. All right. Yes.
Why did all that
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Why did all that knowledge go away?
What happens when nobody goes to school for about 3 generations and everybody's illiterate? Other than the basic stuff, and all the complicated stuff disappears. Now pack her up, get ready to go. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday.
Turn that way.